a chilly 41-degree day in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Packed house, 22,000 making their way into the Dean Dome, which features, count them, 6 national championship batters. It is an ACC matchup. The Seminoles of Florida State facing the Tar Heels of North Carolina. And as this regular season winds down, a look at the ACC standings. Crucial game for North Carolina, 10-5, vying for a berth in the top 4, which guarantees a bye in the first round of the ACC tournament. Florida State looking to get back to the 500 mark in the conference. Hi, everybody. I'm Marv Albert along with Steve Kerr. And Steve, there was some concern earlier this season here in Chapel Hill, the way the Tar Heels were playing, but how things have turned as we approach tournament time. They have won 4 straight 10 of their last 13 games.
Well, Roy Williams told his fan base early in the season not to worry, that they would get better, and the Tar Heels have, Marv. They're playing very efficiently. They're on a roll right now. They seem to have found their footing.
All right, let's break it down as we take a look at the AT&T Fast Analysis.
Well, for Florida State, very familiar name for ACC fans. Michael Snare, who has hit so many clutch shots over the years for the Seminoles. He'll need to be big today for this young squad. Meanwhile, for Carolina, this hot streak has come following a lineup change. Roy Williams going small with a perimeter-oriented lineup. That's allowed them to get out in transition and hit some threes, and they are in a groove right now.
North Carolina seeking its 5th consecutive win. Back in a moment with the starting lineups and the opening tip. CBS Sports college basketball coverage is sponsored by the new 2013 Ford F-150 with EcoBoost. Bud Light, it's the sure side of a good time. Here we go. And by E-Trade. Welcome back to the Dean Smith Center on the campus of the University of North Carolina. Carolina and Florida State meeting for the second time this season. Leonard Hamilton Seminoles lost to the Tar Heels in Tallahassee in a 5-point game back in mid-January. Let's check out the lineup for Florida State. Senior Michael Snare, their best all-around player, MVP of the ACC tournament a year ago. Freshman Devin Booker is the point guard. Okara Waite and Michael Ojo are the big men. As for Carolina, Steve, you talked about their success going small. It is basically a 4-guard lineup, and the biggest players, James Michael McAdoo and Reggie Bullock. And there's Hall of Famer Roy Williams in his 10th season as head coach of the Tar Heels. He has won 2 national championships in 2005 and 2009. And right here, time for Northwestern Youthful planning for success. This was Roy Williams yesterday at practice talking about the move to the 4-guard alignment. And they made that adjustment 5 games back. In the game at Duke, it was the right thing for this team, he said. We're better defensively because it has given us a greater sense of urgency.
And they've actually rebounded pretty well, Marvin. That's going to be an interesting storyline here today. Florida State, traditionally an excellent team on the boards, but they have struggled this year, including getting demolished by the Tar Heels 41-19 on the glass in the earlier meeting between these two clubs.
North Carolina, 4 straight wins, 10 of the last 13. And their last game this past Thursday night at Clemson, a 68-59 victory over Clemson. Here is McAdoo. Yes, James Michael McAdoo, averaging 14 points, 8 rebounds per game. That's the Tar Heels off. Florida State coming off a 14-point home win over Wake Forest this past Tuesday after losing back-to-back road games at North Carolina State and Virginia Tech. Pass intended for Ojo. And here's Bullock ahead of the field.
Now this is the fear if you're Florida State. This is a quick lineup for North Carolina. They can switch a lot defensively and cause some havoc. And the Seminoles with a very young team, particularly on the front line. Ojo will probably only be out here for a couple of minutes. Tough matchup for him with James Michael McAdoo.
Aaron Thomas up top. Michael Snare for 3. Rebounded by McAdoo. The point guard, freshman Marcus Page in the backcourt with Dexter Strickland. P.J. Hairston from downtown. He's an excellent 3-point shooter. Just under 40% from 3. Became a starter in recent weeks, Steve, as part of that smaller lineup being used by Roy Williams.
It was interesting talking to Leonard Hamilton before the game. He said North Carolina kind of knows who they are. We don't, and that is shown here in the early going.
Aaron Thomas looking for a call of a deflection, but it was not touched.
And here's why it's so difficult to cover North Carolina. Now they can spread you out with all these shooters. Even McAdoo, who's not a three-point shooter, is good kind of stretching the floor because he's a pick and pop and then face up and go type guy. So North Carolina with beautiful spacing, and there we go again.
Open shot from McAdoo. This is Booker. Pass for Ojo, almost stolen. Thomas. And the call is made away from the ball. The officiating crew, Jamie Lucky, Ray Natilli, and Brian Kersey. It's on Hairston. Kersey, incidentally, the son of longtime NBA official Jess Kersey, and an early substitution for Leonard Hamilton, who likes to go to his bench. He will use most of his roster. The 7-footer Kyle Turpin has come on for Ojo. Booker gets inside, and Florida State is on the board.
Turpin started the majority of this season, Mar, but Leonard Hamilton changing his lineup 5 games ago felt like his team, his starters anyway, didn't have a sense of urgency. But this is what you see normally now. Turpin coming in pretty quickly for Ojo. Turpin, the better offensive player.
Strickland is off the back iron. Booker met by Bullock. This is Snare. Puts behind the back, and he lost it. He thought he was fouled. And you see the speed of Strickland, who is fouled by Turpin. Kyle Turpin, incidentally, the son of one-time Kentucky All-American and NBA player Mel Turpin. Leonard Hamilton was an assistant at Kentucky when Mel was a star player there.
Kyle's a pretty good player. Spent a couple of years at Lincoln Junior College, where his clubs won back-to-back national titles. He was the MVP both seasons. So this is a talented young guy. And in fact, this Florida State roster has 3 7-footers. Very rare in college basketball these days. They're all pretty young, and Leonard Hamilton is excited about their future. We'll see Boris Bojanovsky in a minute. He's another young kid who's got a lot of skill, much like Turpin. But you know, to this point in the season, Marv, just not enough savvy and experience for this club to really be consistent.
That's a 3-pointer for Devin Booker, who has worked his way back into the starting lineup. This is 6th start. He had injured his knee in a scooter accident on campus in mid-October. And Monte Brandon, a 6'7" freshman, had been starting at the point. But Booker is back. We'll see quite a bit of Brandon. Broken up by Turpin, but recovered. McAdoo called for steps. In the earlier meeting in Tallahassee mid-January, North Carolina came out with a 77-72 win, as you see the touch by Booker. P.J. Hairston in that game had 23 points, including 4 threes.
But a really good game. I mean, nobody ever led by more than 6 points. Florida State led with about 3 minutes to go. And a nice 3-point look there for Snare. Finally, Florida State getting him open off of a screen. But this is a team, Marv, that is talented. If they can put it together and keep themselves in the game, which they're doing here early, they can give North Carolina a scare.
Bullock from 3. Florida State in the midst of an 8-1 run. North Carolina jumped in front 7-0. They double up on Turpin. And the pass carried out of bounds. Bad pass on a mix-up along the sideline. Timeout is called. Tied at 8. Early minutes. We'll be back in a moment. ACC tournament. Although last season they also had that 33-point win over UNC. Carolina, though, has won 8 of the last 9 against Florida State here in Chapel Hill. Shot by Thomas coming up short. Page's pass broken up.
A rare turnover for North Carolina since they've gone small. Marv, last 4 games, averaging fewer than 10 per game. And Marcus Page has really developed and started to figure out the game, the college game. That one just a freshman mistake, not really reading the speed of the defense.
Snare from the angle, rebounded by Bullock. Hairston with space for 3. Wow. Oh, has that beautiful touch. He had that career high game against Florida State in the earlier meeting back in January. 23 points. Booker try to track it down. Leslie McDonald Jr. from Memphis has come on for North Carolina. Hairston played by White. Bullock guarded by Snare, who is an excellent defender. Nice pass inside from McAdoo, blocked from behind by Turpin. Still have 10 on the shot clock. McAdoo to the crossover, kicks it out. Bullock for 3. This is Booker up top. Turpin gives it back to Thomas. And it's a charging foul.
You know, Roy Williams said that the defense and the spacing of this club is better since the lineup change. Here's a perfect example. In transition, when you go against a small team, it's so difficult to find your man because you don't have the traditional bigs running the lane and, you know, perimeter guys on the edge. You don't know where anybody's going to be. And when you've got Hairston and Bullock with unlimited range, and you've got to find your men in transition and get out to them, that's a difficult task defensively.
Once again, substitutions by Leonard Hamilton. The 7'3" Boris Bogdanovsky has come on along with Ian Miller, Jr. out of Charlotte. Pass broken up off the steal. This is Booker. Okara White. Rebound is snatched by McDonald.
Nice extra pass, though, from Snare. Florida State starting to execute better offensively as James knocks down the jump shot. You hear the excitement from the crowd. That's a rare basket from their young big man.
Joel James, who had just checked in, 6'10" freshman out of West Palm Beach, not noted for his offense, and he's been sidelined recently with a concussion. Beautiful move by Michael Snare, who has 5 points.
Well, Marv, you talk about James and the young bigs for Carolina. Desmond Hubert, the sophomore. Bryce Johnson, but they're just not ready. This is not your prototypical Roy Williams Carolina team. You think about the front line over the years, you know, with guys like Tyler Hansbrough and Tyler Zeller. There's Hairston with the miss. This is a club that's sort of in transition. This is one of those in-between years for Carolina.
Snare got the step, tried the reverse. Bogdanovsky, he thought he was fouled. Michael Snare did not have a good game in that earlier meeting against North Carolina, and he's been very active here at the start.
It's been a different kind of season for Michael Snare. Last year, kind of the third option that allowed him to play off of others. This year, he's the focal point of defenses.
Whoa! Oh, James looked like he was trying to go cross-court with a pass, and it got deflected into the basket, and he will receive credit.
Are you kidding? I don't know if I've ever seen that.
There is Miller for 3. On the hop, Bullock, 3-on-2 for North Carolina, and Florida State able to get back.
The crowd yelling, shoot. James is hot, 2 for 2. One that bounced around, and then one that was deflected off the defender.
Our driving move by Strickland, and the foul is called. It is on Booker. All right, here's Joel James in action with some help.
Well, they said he's been working on his jump shot.
His homes and subdivisions. Is this the next housing bubble? Well, find out tonight on 60 Minutes only. CBS. Florida State head coach Leonard Hamilton has gone through a very difficult time. His mother passed away earlier this week. He was at the funeral yesterday in Gastonia, North Carolina. His mom, Benny Ruth Hamilton, was 96 years old, and she was so proud of Leonard, not only for his basketball success, but for his academic success, including a master's degree. Leonard missed the shoot-around yesterday, but was back at work, we should point out, this morning for a 7:45 a.m. shoot-around and practice. Strickland on the move, and a foul is called. The coaching staff has felt that the team has been getting off to slow starts. Foul is on Brandon, who just came on. So on game days, in those situations, he has been going with the early wake-up calls. 7:45 a.m. They were out here practicing. McDonald comes up short on a three. Steve, I watched this morning's practice at 7:45. I myself felt thoroughly invigorated. I feel so much better about myself.
I was fast asleep. I had already done my homework.
How could you tell? Desmond Hubert on the move, able to hit that jumper. Ten and a half remaining in this first half. Bryce Johnson has come on for North Carolina. Pass play was broken up, and then the recovery, and Bojanovsky came down with the rebound. Beautiful pass. Robert Gilchrist, the junior from London, England, who grew up playing soccer in London, was able to lay it home, and it's a one-point game.
And a rookie mistake, freshman mistake for Bryce Johnson, who fails to get back defensively. He's got to get back to the rim, and he lost vision that time on Gilchrist, hence the easy two for Florida State.
McDonald's shot was blocked by Brandon.
And we're seeing the weakness of this North Carolina club, of the depth or the lack thereof, and the inexperience on the front line. This lineup with Johnson and Hubert just not very potent offensively. It clogs up the lane, and Roy Williams immediately going back to his starters at the next dead ball.
North Carolina had gotten off to a 7-0 lead, but Florida State coming roaring back. Hairston picked up that foul. Tuesday on CBS, television's newest police partners are back for another round. Don't miss the new drama Golden Boy. That's Tuesday at 10, 9 Central, only CBS.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, Mark, just not being the typical UNC, front line heavy club. And the youth and inexperience has led to this lineup change. And I think it's led to this sort of transition year for the Tar Heels. The young guys are going to be good, but it's going to take some time.
Monty Brandon firing the three from the corner, and on the battle for the rebound, an elbowing foul. It's charged to Marcus Page of North Carolina. Fourth team foul. Make it 3 team fouls on the Tar Heels, 4 on Florida State. Brandon now playing the point, coming on for Booker. Miller gets it down low, and Bojanovsky not able to hit, then it's slapped out of his hands. Here comes Strickland. Bullock for 3.
We talked about the inexperience of the Carolina front line. Same goes for Florida State. Bojanovsky, a pretty talented, skilled young big, but a couple of point-blank misses. He needs about 30 or 40 pounds, Marv, but eventually he's going to be very good.
Robert Gilchrist is 3 for 3 from the field. Florida State up by 1.
An unexpected lift from Gilchrist offensively.
And that pass ends up on the backcourt, a violation. The ball back to the Seminoles.
Gilchrist coming into this game averaging fewer than 2 points per game, and he's already 3 for 3, including a face-up jump shot from about 12 feet.
Carl White sent back on by Leonard Hamilton, and Terrence Shannon, a 6'8 junior who's back from a neck injury, missed the last 10 games, was a question mark for today, but is making his return. Had a huge game in that earlier meeting against North Carolina. Wisnan, who has A good touch from 3, usually not able to hit that time.
Shannon, really the backbone of this team, the leader, and that scary neck injury kind of changed this season for the Seminoles. Good to see him back, although he may not be able to play big minutes.
McAdoo off the nice setup. Leonard Hamilton telling us maybe 2-3 minutes at a time.
Well, the problem is he has not been able to work on his conditioning. With the neck injury, the doctors wanted him to just basically do nothing and let it heal. And so you can imagine no court work for him whatsoever since the injury, and he will undoubtedly be rusty.
McAdoo off the steal. McAdoo with the stuff, yes. And a count. A foul on Shannon.
You saw that look from Leonard Hamilton to Shannon, saying, what are you doing? The rust, not only in handling the ball, but committing the silly foul. McAdoo with the and one.
Back in Chapel Hill, 3-point lead for North Carolina. Florida State now 7 of 20. Carolina 7 for 17. Both teams shooting 2 of 7 from downtown. North Carolina 37% 3-point shooting team. So they have been very, very efficient. Florida State about 35% from 3. James Michael McAdoo looking to complete a 3-point play. Has not been hitting the free throws recently. Prior to that, 7 for his last 19.
And just 56% on the season. Very interesting, Marv. You mentioned the 3-point prowess. Very rarely do you see a good 3-point shooting team that's also a bad free throw shooting club.
Wisner was inside but faced a lot of pressure. Strickland fired one up. Wisner for 3. Bullock got a piece of it, but it's kept alive. Brandon can't hit. Able to grab the rebound. Now Strickland on it. And the Tar Heels on the move. Playing very fast. That's what Roy Williams likes about this smaller lineup.
And they've held their own on the glass, Marvin. That was his big concern. But both Bullock and Hairston, as Bullock knocks down the 3. But, Marv, when you talk about playing small, the only way you can really get away with it is if you've got wings who are big and strong enough to rebound and defend. And with Hairston and Bullock, North Carolina has 2 of the best.
8-0 run by the Tar Heels. North Carolina now up by 7. Just under 7 minutes remaining in this first half. See the wide open Reggie Bullock able to drill it from the corner.
The officials are taking a look on the replay. Clearly Bullock was well behind that line, so that's that quick review. But Carolina, this is a lineup that is very difficult to cover. You've got McAdoo, who has the ability to pick and pop, not so much as a 3-point shooter, but as a face-up big, using his speed and quickness to drive around his defender. And then everybody else can handle the ball, can pass, and you've got multiple 3-point shooters as well.
Some light pressure shown by North Carolina. Devin Booker is back at the point, and Thomas at the guards. And a travel is called on the freshman point guard, Booker.
Well, you mentioned earlier that Florida State has started so many different lineups. Leonard Hamilton has a deep team, but it's kind of, is this good or is this bad? He played 11 guys in the first half of that earlier matchup against Carolina. I think the story of the season, he just hasn't been able to find the right combination. He's got a deep team, but not necessarily one that has separated itself lineup-wise.
McAdoo twisting his way and scores. 25-16, North Carolina.
Boy, he is a handful.
Averages 14 and 8, shoots 45%. James Michael McAdoo, a sophomore from Norfolk, Virginia. Good defensive sequence here by the Tar Heels. Michael Snare just returned, goes to the rim, able to recover, and it's put down. Kyle Turpin on the follow.
Well, you just see how difficult it is for Snare this season, Marlon. I mean, last year, we talked about it. He played off of others. They ran a lot of offense for him. He got good looks from the perimeter. Everything, every shot, every cut is contested.
The alley-oop from McAdoo. Beautiful timing on that pass from Hairston.
There's that floor spacing again. So North Carolina just spreads you out. You have to honor every three-point shooter, every cut, every pass. And that opened it up for McAdoo on that backdoor cut.
11 points for McAdoo. 12-2 run for North Carolina. Snare into the paint. Snare from Turpin. And he obviously was bothered by Bullock. There's Page on the drive. And it's put down again by McAdoo. Carolina with a 29-18 lead.
The entire Carolina bench and coaching staff is up right now. Well, now they sit down, but the crowd really into it. Tar Heels on a big run here.
Snare using the crossover draws the foul. So Michael Snare, an 80% free throw shooter, will shoot a pair.
This is a club. We mentioned it, Marv. They've struggled all season to kind of find themselves, but I think they've done it here in the last couple of weeks. Look at this execution, the backdoor lob. Hairston to McAdoo. Tell you what, this is going to be very interesting to watch Carolina down the stretch, not just in this game, but their last two games at Maryland. Then they've got Duke at home. Marvin, for all of Carolina's struggles this season, they're only a game behind the Blue Devils in the conference standings. And so if they can hold serve here and win at Maryland, they could go into the ACC tournament with a 7-game winning streak and all kinds of confidence.
And the top 4 teams in the ACC get a bye for the tournament. North Carolina's won 4 straight after losing at Miami and at Duke. That was a lane violation called on Florida State, so that last free throw by Snare is waved off. Coming up on 4 minutes to play in this first half. Marv Albert along with Steve Kerr. Page with a beautiful move and cannot finish. Bullock with a deep three.
Oh.
Yes!
Come on. That was about 5 feet behind the line, just illustrating the difficulty in covering this Carolina stretch offense.
Jackson Simmons, 6'7" sophomore, has come on for North Carolina. Played very well in the earlier meeting against Florida State. Snare shoots the three. No hesitation by Hairston. 20-3 run, and Florida State will talk it over. P.J. Hairston, 3 for 4 from beyond that three-point line. It's been all Carolina. They're up 35-19. Coming up on AT&T at the half, join Greg Gumbel, Greg Anthony, Doug Gottlieb, and Seth Davis for all of the scores and highlights, plus the latest NCAA tournament news. They'll be talking with the chair of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee, Mike Babinski. That's all coming up on AT&T at the half. What a day in college basketball yesterday.
Oh, boy. Some big games, big performances. Ryan Kelly, unbelievable.
Oh, beautiful lob. And Turpin able to put it down off that pass from Booker.
How about talking about yesterday's action? How about Doug McDermott going for 41 for Creighton, 15 for 18.
They are on fire. Hairston now with 11 points.
Anybody want to play these guys out there? Talking about the NCAA tournament. By the way, I wouldn't want to be in Mike Babinski's shoes this year. I mean, this has got to be maybe the most difficult season ever to try to seed all these teams, not only just at the top, but all across the board. So difficult to differentiate these clubs.
Traveling violation on Okara White. Under normal conditions, it's difficult, but as you mentioned, this season it's just impossible to figure out. North Carolina up by 16.
Let's get it underway. Oh, the kid, watch out now. We've got some action. Oh, my
Madness is coming, and you can follow it all from Selection Sunday and all the shining moments to the Final Four right here. What a performance by North Carolina in this first half. 14 field goals, 12 assists. It's a 22-5 run that is underway here by the Tar Heels. And during the course of the run, 8 of 11 shooting, 3 for 3 from downtown. Overall, they've hit 5 of 10 from three-point land. And North Carolina in possession. Page had to put the brakes on. Page picked up by Turpin, shoots over him for 3. It's all going in here for the Tar Heels.
Tell you what, Page, the numbers aren't great, but they kind of lie. He's an excellent three-point shooter, and as his freshman year has progressed, he's really started to find the range and the confidence. But you think about the difference between him and Kendall Marshall a year ago. And Marshall, probably a little bigger, a little stronger, but pretty much a playmaker. This kid can play make, but also step outside and knock down that shot.
Foul was called on Simmons. Marcus Page says even before arriving here at Chapel Hill, he knew he'd have to hear all about the comparisons to Kendall Marshall's now with the Phoenix Suns, a first-round draft pick. Good catch there by Snare. Snare turned back again. He's had a difficult time. Good defense here by Carolina. And let's see the possession arrow pointing at North Carolina off that tie-up. Good hustle. Jackson Simmons diving for that loose ball for the tie-up. Jackson Simmons was able to get the timeout. Smart play by the Tar Heels, so it was nothing to do with the possession arrow. But North Carolina in possession by virtue of the timeout.
It's the kind of play that Jackson Simmons has made routinely. That's why he's been able to find some minutes here for Roy Williams. Just a high-energy, smart player who will gain the Tar Heels extra possessions.
And getting a little more playing time than normal because J.P. Tokoto is out of action. Apparently hurt himself, McAdoo, now with 15 points. In practice yesterday, something you can relate to, Steve. He hurt his hand on the rim.
I used to do that all the time when I played.
You hate when that happens.
Yeah, that really hurts.
So Tokoto sitting it out, and Jackson Simmons getting additional minutes. Snare with the bucket, and he is fouled. So Michael Snare will go to the line. He has 8 points and a look for number 9. The foul is called on Simmons.
Well, Snare 3 of 10 shooting, but I would say 4 or 5 of them have just been under duress and very difficult shots. He's been trying to get to the rim, but Carolina has put all kinds of pressure on him.
A hand is for the hustling Jackson Simmons, sophomore out of Webster, North Carolina. As he takes a seat, P.J. Hairston checks back in.
Mark, it's not hyperbole to say that Simmons helped turn this season around, because in the earlier matchup between these two clubs, North Carolina entered at 0-2 ACC play. Florida State was 2-0, having won 2 road games. And North Carolina trailed in the final minutes of that game. Simmons had 8 points and 4 rebounds, including a huge putback in the final minutes. His energy and just his hustle helped win that game. And he hasn't played a lot of minutes, but he's played important minutes for this club.
Terrence Shannon is back for Florida State, as is Monte Brandon for this final minute of the first half. North Carolina opened up with 7 unanswered points. Florida State came roaring back, and then North Carolina has been on a tear that has carried through most of this first half. A 27-8 spur. Page got the step. Marcus Page with 5 points, able to take it to the rim. It is a 20-point lead for North Carolina.
It's amazing how much easier the game has gotten for both Strickland and Page since the small lineup changed. There's just so much more room for them to operate.
They can't hold for a final shot here. Nice pass inside. That will count. And the foul. Snare getting it down low to Shannon. Terrence Shannon making his return today from that neck injury, and he will go to the line.
A little taste of their own medicine for Carolina. You see Florida State has the Tar Heels spread out, and then just a quick cut to the basket from Shannon. Good to see him back. That was a very scary injury he suffered back in January. And hopefully he'll be able to improve his conditioning here in the next couple weeks.
Final seconds of the half. McAdoo to the rim and scores at the buzzer. They'll check it out, but it appears he was able to get that shot off on top. 17 points on 8 of 10 shooting for James Michael McAdoo.
Just horrendous transition defense. Why cover out all the way at half court when there's only a second on the clock? Florida State should have been packed in that lane.
So that is the end of the first half. North Carolina with a 46-27 lead on Florida State as they look to make it 5 straight wins and 11 of their last 14. The officiating crew checking out that last shot. See McAdoo on the drive.
And did you see Monte Bramman just run? He was supposed to be guarding McAdoo. He ran all the way to half court. The basket does count.
So Carolina led by McAdoo with his 17 points. And they have the big lead at halftime as we go to Greg Gumbel in New York.
Thank you, Mark. Coming up on AT&T at the half. Scores and highlights, and we'll talk live with Mike Levinsky, the chair of the men's basketball committee, after this message and a word from your local station.
By the new Buick Enclave. It's smart, made beautiful. Lowe's, never stop improving, never stop. And by LG, life's good. Welcome back to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Marv Albert along with Steve Kerr. What an impressive first half by the Tar Heels with the 19-point lead as we take a look at the Liberty Mutual first half stats.
North Carolina was just spectacular. I mean, and the numbers are fantastic, but even they don't really tell the story. 59% shooting. How about 13 assists to just 4 turnovers for Carolina? And then Florida State, the struggles due in large part to the harassing Carolina defense.
Dexter Strickland, 4 assists. Marcus Page for 6. They have 10 of North Carolina's 13 assists. Florida State ball as we get underway.
A near turnover on the inbounds pass. And we've seen so many little mistakes from this team. Well, the youth and the inexperience shows in so many different ways.
Battle underneath with McAdoo going up against Turpin. Backdoor pass intended for Snell. Broken up and deflected out last touch by the Tar Heels. 7 on the shot clock for Florida State. Florida State at 15-13, 7-8 in the ACC. They come off a 14-point home win over Wake Forest this past Tuesday after back-to-back losses in road games at NC State and Virginia Tech. Shot clock to 3. Turpin able to field it. It's blocked by McAdoo. And they calling it a goaltend. The officials huddling up.
Well, there's a lot going on. There could have been a shot clock violation or a goaltend or even a foul as the officials convene. And we'll see what they come up with here. You see Aaron Thomas's attempt. Can't quite tell there. So I don't think the ball hit the rim on Thomas's attempt.
But also the shot clock was reset.
The only thing they can look at is the shot clock. They can't look at a goaltend. So it reset. So now you've got to figure out, would it have expired? That's almost impossible for the officials. You saw the shot clock went from 2 back to 35. Watch this right here. Okay, so now it goes to 35. It should be at 2. 1, 2. It was a goaltend, but I don't think they're allowed to look at that under the rules. This is all about what exactly happened with the shot clock.
No question. Officials can use the monitor to check a clock malfunction, or if it's not stopped or started properly. Right. So that's what they are looking at. I thought it was a goaltend. I thought that was the initial call.
Yeah, but they couldn't count it. They're going to call it a shot clock violation. And I guess what you do in that circumstance is you count it off in your head. You know, you make believe it didn't go off, and you say, all right, 2 seconds.
You make
1,
believe.
2. If this were a close game, I'm not sure Leonard Hamilton would be real thrilled with the end result, but he's more concerned with his team just showing some strength and stability here in the face of this surge from the Tar Heels.
McAdoo kicks it out. Hairston. Bullock reaching over, cannot get to it. Turpin does. Wild scramble, and ends up as a backcourt violation. It was a smart move, though, by Strickland. Did not want to touch any part of the backcourt. Thought he could save it, but could not.
Well, it's key because there's definitely possession there, and Strickland has the awareness to try to leap from behind. Makes a great attempt, but his foot was over the line. Good call from the officials. But Mark, just the hustle on every play from this Carolina team. So impressive today.
And you look at the points on the board at the half for North Carolina, 46. This is Snare. He's been off, rebounded by Turpin. It counts, and a foul. Crowd looking for an offensive foul. Kyle Turpin with the field goal. The foul committed by James Michael McAdoo.
Crowd wanted an over the back, but I thought Turpin got the rebound before McAdoo sort of backed into him. So in my mind, that's a good call, although the crowd doesn't exactly agree with me.
Kyle Turpin, who came in at 210 pounds prior to the season. The coaches say he has gained 30 pounds of muscle. And we talked about this before, Steve. You ever hear coaches say, well, he did a great job. He gained 30 pounds of flat. Strictly flat.
I have not heard that one yet. Usually 15 pounds of muscle.
Right, well,
this is 30.
Bullock rims out. We're getting back to the point. 46 points scored against Florida State. Over the last few years, Florida State has been one of the best defensive teams in the nation. Certainly in the ACC, not the case. We have seen it only in spurts this season. A snare is called for the Travel.
Yeah, they've led the ACC in defensive field goal percentage 4 consecutive seasons under Leonard Hamilton. You see the numbers from last year. Now this year's a totally different story. No more Chris Singleton, no more Bernard James. You've got freshmen playing where seniors were before. So this is a team that just hasn't figured itself out yet.
Beautiful pass. Bullock set up by Page. What a game from Marcus Page, the 6-foot, 157-pound freshman out of Marion, Iowa.
Well, that was Page's 7th assist. And you really look at this club as having 2 point guards, Strickland and Page. How about these numbers? Over the last 5 games, they've combined for 53 assists to just 13 turnovers. You know, that's unheard of in basketball.
Turpin cannot hit the wide open shot, and Strickland has made it back from last season's torn ACL surgery. It started 19 games and went down. Bad pass picked off. Florida State back to the offense. Snare lost the handle. And here comes Strickland to put it down. A 20-point lead for North Carolina.
10 turnovers for Florida State. I mean, execution-wise, they just have not found a groove for more than a couple of minute stretch as Carl White scores inside. And it just has not been there all game for the Seminoles.
First field goal for White off a nice move on that second fake. He averages 12 points a game. 3.5 gone by. Second half, McAdoo with the step. And that pass ends up in the hands of Florida State. This is Thomas setting it up. And a three-pointer for Devin Booker.
Nice pass there from Thomas. Just good execution in transition, drawing a couple of defenders and then making the easy pass. Florida State obviously needs more of that here in the second half.
North Carolina has led by as many as 21 points. Page is fouled off that drive. Seminoles have it down to 15. Off the steal, it's all Dexter Strickland.
15 points. He's done it all defensively, the steal, the transition basket. How about the presence of mind to get that ball out of his hand just before the halftime buzzer? Well, you know, it has not been a great season for McAdoo. He's been good. 14 points, 8 boards a game. He's shooting 44%. I think Carolina fans expected a little more from him coming back for his sophomore year, but he's been a different player now with the smaller lineup. More confidence, more space to work with. And if he plays like this in the ACC tournament and beyond, look out.
Well, he blossomed late in his freshman year last season following an uneven start. But now for North Carolina, he's the man in terms of scoring, along with Reggie Bullock. Wednesday on Survivor, one tribe is united and the other is divided, plus a medical emergency will take someone out of the game. New Survivor Wednesday only CBS. Well, Page will sit down following the free throws and replaced by the junior from Memphis, Wesley McDonald, who missed all of last season recovering from knee surgery. McDonald getting some time here at the start of the second half. 16-point lead for North Carolina. Janowski up top, played by Bryce Johnson, and a foul is called on Johnson. At the end of the first half, the Tar Heels pulled away as they hit 11 of the last 13 shots, made their last 4 three-pointers. It was a three-point festival for North Carolina in that first half.
I would guess that Roy Williams would call it the best half they've played all season. And looking ahead for Carolina, I mean, they're in, obviously, in the NCAA tournament, but if they're going to make a deep push, I think one of the keys will be just these little 4 or 5 minute stretches where guys like Bryce Johnson, Desmond Hubert, Jackson Simmons, where they're called upon just to keep the game close. There's a nice rebound from Johnson. But this small lineup so lethal for Carolina, but they've got to depend on a couple of other players off the bench that so far, you know, they really haven't been able to depend on this season.
Now Strickland will start it all over. McAdoo on the move. This is Booker. White down low for the lob and able to finish on a reverse. Good eye contact between the two. So Florida State making a push. They're now within 14 after trailing by as many as 21. McDonald's shot is blocked. And a foul. Aaron Thomas coming up with that rejection.
The game changes so dramatically for Carolina when they go to their more traditional big lineup, whether it's Johnson or Simmons or Hubert coming in, because the floor now is not spaced, it's packed, and a team like Florida State can now defend them without having to worry about the three-point shooters. And you hear the crowd getting behind their Tar Heels. You can sense just a little momentum shift here.
Strickland committing that foul, his second. Thomas, played by Bullock. Turpin trying to get position. And it's deflected out. Last touch by the Tar Heels. .13 on the shot clock. Janowski gets it down low to White. That pass is saved. Thomas not able to hit the three with the shot clock running down, and North Carolina back in possession. McAdoo on the move. McAdoo with the runner, rejected by Bojanowski. Crowd wanted a goal tag. The 7'3" product of the Slovak Republic. Boris Bojanowski coming up with that block shot, but they give it right back.
Booker trying to make the spectacular play. Look at the block here from Bojanowski. This is what he can do defensively as he continues to get stronger, but they've got to convert at the other end, not just with a hoop, but with a good possession and not a turnover, just to keep getting their momentum swinging.
Strickland able to knock it down from straight away. 53-37, North Carolina. Here's the lob again for White, hit the rim. And here come the substitutions. A look at the ACC. How many do you feel are going to make it to March Madness?
I think the first 5 are in. Maryland is the big question mark. You see the 70 RPI. So they've got some work to do. It would help them if they could beat this North Carolina team next week, and then of course maybe win a game or 2 in the ACC tournament. And then everything depends on what happens in other conference tournaments as well.
That game coming up Wednesday night at Maryland. Miller with his first field goal, and the lead is down to 14. And then North Carolina finishes up next Saturday night. Home game against Duke. Off the steal, Snare being chased and hit from behind. Fouled in the act. Foul is on McDonald.
Well, here you see the steal. And, you know, Roy Williams was furious the other night at Clemson. More of his team played an excellent first half and really just mailed in the second half. And he was so upset. He said if he didn't have laryngitis, he would have let them have it at practice. He couldn't talk. But he really wants his team to finish strongly in this game.
Well, baseball season, as you know, Steve, almost here. Get ready by moving your fantasy league to the site that's won 10 Best Commissioner Awards. Visit cbssports.com/baseball to get started. Now, Roy has been under the weather the last few days, lost his voice, and he told us the way that his team played in that second half against Clemson the other night. At practice yesterday, he says the guys were very happy that he lost that voice.
Marv, I thought it was very insulting that you wouldn't shake his hand
never
in practice.
Man is not feeling it. He took it well. I gave him a little elbow.
Yeah, but he's a man worthy of your respect, Marv. I mean, just go wash your hands afterwards.
I don't want to get cold, Steve. I saw you did the same incidentally. Bullock with 13 points.
Well, we're talking about ACC teams in the tournament. North Carolina's seed in the big dance is going to be really interesting. This is a club that basically has one good non-conference win. That was at home against UNLV. Nothing else. And they got blown out at Indiana, blown out by Butler. But it's a different club than what we saw earlier in the season.
Bojanowski was stripped. Page played by Booker. Bullock is looking for a screen. Shot clock is down to 10. Page surveying. Down to 5. Crowd counting it out, and so Simmons is rejected, and it's a shot clock violation. Which leads us to a break with 11:15 remaining. North Carolina 56, Florida State 41. Back in Chapel Hill, North Carolina by 15. Steve, I enjoyed your earlier assessment so much. Let's revisit the AT&T past analysis.
Well, North Carolina, we talked about the small lineup the last 5+ games. And what it's done is it's improved their defense. They've been able to convert turnovers into transition offense. They have so many players who are strong on the wings, and they're able to guard bigger players. So it's allowed them to stay competitive on the glass. There's Hubert Davis. I talked to him yesterday, first-year assistant coach for Carolina, longtime Tar Heel favorite here in Chapel Hill. He told me, I asked him, has practice changed at all since you played here 20 years ago? He said, not really, not one bit. And that's one of the reasons it was difficult for Roy Williams to make the change, because he's a coach who has a strong tradition of what he likes to do, how he wants to play, and how he wants to develop his program. So this change it took some time, and Williams really had to warm to it, but clearly the right decision.
Hubert, a terrific player here at North Carolina, averaged 21 points as a senior, then a first-round pick of the Knicks in '92, 12 years in the NBA, and then went on to a successful radio and TV career, but he says he's always wanted a coach, and here he is on Roy Williams' staff.
He's everything you want in terms of a potential great coach. He's a former player who knew the game well, and he's got a great personality. He can relate to the players. Simmons, crowd thought he was fouled on the putback.
Florida State down by 15. The pull-up from Miller from long range hits the three. The 21-point lead has evaporated. It's down to 12.
And this is what we talked about, Marv. The few minutes that they can get out of Hubert, Johnson, and Simmons, can they survive? And that's what's going to be very telling for this club going forward.
McDonald draws the foul. Leslie McDonald on the drive. Well, coming up next, Big Ten rivals get together. Keith Appling and the Michigan State Spartans will battle Trey Burke and the Wolverines of Michigan. A huge game for seeding Michigan State 22-6, 11-4 in the Big Ten. Michigan 23-5, 10-5 in the Big Ten. Michigan State won that first matchup in East Lansing convincingly.
And really an unforgivable loss for Michigan at Penn State. I mean, the Big Ten is so good this season, but that's a game, if you're going to be the top seed or one of the top seeds in the tournament, you have to win at Penn State. So I think that will come back to haunt the Wolverines come Selection Sunday.
Jackson Simmons sitting down. Oh, the tip by McAdoo on that second free throw. 19 points for McAdoo. James Michael McAdoo, a second cousin of Hall of Famer Bob McAdoo, now an assistant coach with Miami. James's father, Ronnie, was a star player at Old Dominion and played professionally overseas, and his mom, Janet, played pro overseas.
I think the officials were checking on the clock here after the... Boy, it looked like Turpin actually might have tipped that in. And McAdoo doing what all smart offensive players do. Raise your hand and let everybody know. No, that's my basket.
And he did receive credit.
Yes, he did. Closest to the man who touched the ball.
15-point lead for North Carolina. Just under 10 minutes remaining in the game. Crowd wanted to travel on White. Off the collision. P.J. Hairston has helped to his feet. His 6 points all scored here in the second half by Carl White, the junior out of Clearwater, Florida.
Very few baskets have come out of flow, though, for Florida State. I mean, everything's been difficult. Carolina, on the other hand, when they've been right, everything has been smooth. Although the last couple minutes, Florida State kind of found some footing here defensively.
This is Hairston. There's that beautiful touch. 13 points. He's hit 5 of 8, 3 from downtown. P.J. Hairston, who became a starter in recent weeks, that was part of the Tar Heels' smaller lineup, and he has shot the ball very well.
Between Hairston and Bullock, I mean, North Carolina's got a couple of flamethrowers on the wings. Offensive foul there on the Seminoles. So that's why this Carolina team is going to be so difficult to handle going forward. You've got McAdoo's incredible going around the basket. You've got 2 ball handling point guards basically with Page and Strickland, and then a couple of dynamic wings in Hairston and Bullock, stretching you out and making you pay in transition.
That's foul called on Gilchrist of Florida State. Hairston checking the clock, 10 on the shot clock. McAdoo slipping through, and the pass had a little bit too much on it for Bullock.
I like the idea, though. I mean, you never fault a guy for trying to find a teammate who's cutting to the rim. That's why Roy Williams really wasn't upset at all. He just kind of clapped his hands, said, get back and let's make a stop here.
Kyle Turpin returns for Florida State. Seminoles down by 15. North Carolina trying to make it 5 straight wins, and 11 of their last 14. Miller, and on the hop it's handled by Page. Looking for Strickland on the wing, but he's covered. Hairston with the shot. A long three for P.J. Hairston. He has 16 points, his 4th from downtown.
And you just can't guard that. Well, they push the ball, they spread you out, and Page with another great decision, and then a little extra ball movement, and it's a wide open look.
Nice move by Turpin going right at McAdoo. Kyle Turpin at 7 feet, 240 pounds. McAdoo about 6'9".
And once again, immediately as North Carolina goes back to this smaller lineup, they make a push.
And White with an aggressive foul on Strickland. And the crowd did not like it.
We've seen this all game. Spread you out, extra pass. Hairston, another 3.
CBS Sports college basketball coverage is sponsored by AT&T. Rethink possible. State Farm for auto, home, life, and banking. Get to a better state. And by Ram Trucks, engineered to move heaven and earth. Guts, Glory Ram. A look at the beautiful Carolina Basketball Museum, which is located adjacent to the Smith Center here on campus. And as part of the memorabilia, this was a letter written by Duke head coach Mike Krzyzewski to a fellow by the name of Mike Jordan. He was called Mike back in 1980. He writes, I'm sorry to hear that you no longer have an interest in learning more about Duke University. However, I do want you to know that my staff and I wish you the very best in your college career. You are a fine young man, and you should make an immediate impact on whatever you choose. Take care and best of luck. Sincerely, Mike Krzyzewski.
That's fantastic. You know, my first thought there when I saw this, Marv, was, this was right after Krzyzewski took over at Duke. I could just picture Michael talking with his family after reading the letter. Hey guys, I got this letter from Duke. Do you guys know anything about this Mike Krzyzewski gentleman? What's he all about?
Here's Hairston on the drive. And as I recall, I did some of Mike Jordan's games here at the Dean Dome in North Carolina. My earlier days over at NBC, and it was always Mike Jordan. He suddenly became Michael sounds better. I think it adds. Oh, he did not play at the Dean Dome.
He was at the
I imagine the Dean Dome. That was Carmichael, yes.
Fantastic stuff, though. How great is it? I mean, how much other Duke stuff is there at the Carolina Museum? I'm guessing not much.
In fact, that might be it.
That's probably it. But when you think basketball tradition, college basketball tradition, UCLA, Kentucky, Carolina, Duke, Kansas, that's about it, really, when you talk about the really most hallowed programs in the country.
Able to drill it from downtown. 16 points for Reggie Bullock. That's his 4th three-pointer. He shoots 44% from three-point range.
But the shots are getting easier later in the season because of the style of play, not just for Bullock, but for all the Tar Heels. The open floor, the transition baskets. So all those numbers for the perimeter players for Carolina are going to go up.
North Carolina shooting right around 60% for a good portion of this game. We're back to the 19-point advantage.
Wouldn't mind being in this building next week when the Blue Devils come to town. The way the Tar Heels are playing and with the kind of season Duke has put together, this place will be rocking.
Oh! That counts for the foul. Bullock on the recovery after Strickland's shot went short.
Well, I've been in this building several times, and this is a great crowd. I think this Carolina crowd really enjoys watching this team, and it's been a process for this club. Roy Williams talked about it early in the season. We're going to get better. We're young. Don't expect too much, but we'll be better by the end of the year. And you can see it happening before your eyes, and you can feel the energy from the crowd. They're watching this team grow, and they're enjoying every minute of it.
Back at the Dean Dome on the campus of the University of North Carolina. Look at our game summary with the Tar Heels well in front. 55% shooting here. One of their best performances, and they've been doing it with the three.
Now 9 for 15. Watch how many of these are basically uncontested. Who's 4 for 7 from beyond the arc. Carolina has just been executing, taking care of the ball. They're scoring in transition. And Bullock and Hairston, because of their deep range, I mean, they're not, 21-foot three-point shooters. They're 25-foot three-point shooters. So, that kind of range makes it even tougher for the defense to recover.
What a performance by Bullock. 18 points, 10 rebounds. Reggie moved into the starting lineup last season and last January after Dexter Strickland went out for the year with a torn ACL. Just under 5 minutes to play in the second half. Snare loops it cross court, and it's broken up. McDonald got a piece of it.
Well, you mentioned the injuries last year, Mark, not just to Strickland and McDonald, but John Henson got injured in the ACC tourney, and of course Kendall Marshall in the tournament. And I thought we were headed for an epic Kentucky-North Carolina final game, because you think about that Tar Heel club a year ago with Zeller and with Harrison Barnes. The 4 first-round picks, just incredible, but we never got to see that club.
Well, Bryce Johnson with the rejection, and it landed in the hands of Devin Booker. Well, that team last season, at times ranked #1, made it to the Elite 8, where they did lose to the Jayhawks of Kansas, and their point guard was a young man by the name of Stillman White, with Kendall Marshall playing hurt.
And White is Mormon. He's on a mission this year, so not on the team. He will return. And I thought Stillman White did a really nice job under the circumstances. Remember, he rarely played all season for Roy Williams. All of a sudden, he's thrown out there in the Elite 8 against Kansas, but the Marshall loss was too much to overcome.
Snare comes up with the steal. And Snare with the lead. Nice play as Boris Bogdanovsky is able to finish. North Carolina gets the ball up court in a hurry. The line. Bryce Johnson from Reggie Bullock.
As we talked about how things haven't changed that much with Carolina, that early offense fast break, something that Dean Smith put in decades ago. They still run it, and precision execution there by North Carolina.
Miller way off, and Bullock is on it. Certainly one of the most impressive performances of the season by the Tar Heels. Got off to the early lead, scored the first 7 points. Florida State came roaring back. And then for most of the first half, it was a 3-point shooting exhibition by North Carolina. McAdoo gets the roll. 21 points for James Michael McAdoo.
10 of 15 from the floor, and got that mid-range shot down. Got the roll that time. That's when you know you're hot as a shooter, when one just bounces around and still finds the range.
Snare. Michael Snare just 4 for 13 from the field. He has 13 points.
He's one of the few open looks he's had.
And it's Bullock this time with a lay-in. He has 20 points.
9 assists now for Marcus Page.
Carolina up by 21.
And apparently Roy Williams not taking any chances. He's got Hairston and Strickland ready to check in here with 2 minutes left and a 21-point lead.
Bogdanovsky with a hook pass down low. And it's deflected out of bounds. leading to a timeout. 2 minutes, 2 seconds to play. It is all Carolina. They're up 75-54. Reminder, tomorrow Dave's got Bruce Willis, Kate Upton, and later on this week you can catch Jennifer Lawrence plus Melissa McCarthy, followed by Craig Ferguson, only CBS. Well, Thursday night after the win over Clemson, Roy Williams was not particularly happy with what took place despite the victory. Does he have anything to be unhappy about here this afternoon?
I mean, he is a very detail-oriented guy, but you are too, Marvin. Even though I think this has been a good broadcast, I know you're probably going to berate me on the way to the airport about certain details.
Well, the crew has been very unhappy with your performance. They felt you came on in the second half.
Well, maybe that's how Roy feels about his team, too, because I think we've been really good today, Marv, just so you know. Our standards are a little different.
Modestly said, as Snare ribs out, and a foul is called. It is on North Carolina, but this has to be considered one of the best performances of the season for the Tar Heels.
Probably the best, and I know Florida State hasn't played great, and they're not one of the top teams in the ACC, but still, just the total effort at both ends of the floor, the hustle, the togetherness. You know, there were a couple of spells where they went to their bench where they struggled a bit. And again, that's going to be part of the process for Roy going forward, just trying to find some useful minutes from Hubert and Johnson. But overall, a whole lot to be happy about.
The ovation for P.J. Hairston as he went to the bench. Roy Williams making some substitutions. And a foul is called. It is on Bojanovsky. A look at the North Carolina tournament resume as we look ahead. We have the ACC tournament coming up. 20-8 in the ACC. 10-5.
Now that's going to improve if they win their last two against Maryland and Duke, obviously. But the problem for Carolina, just very little on their resume in the non-conference that stands out at you. Only the home win against UNLV. But you know, the committee looks at a lot of different things. And you know the old adage about the eye test. Carolina is passing the eye test these days. Their seed is climbing for sure.
And now Roy Williams going deeper into his bench. Walk on Wade Moody, a junior from Mount Airy, North Carolina, has just come on. Here's Moody, who has appeared in 11 games. He's played a total of 16 minutes. Minute 15 remaining. Desmond Hubert is also checked in. Coming up here on CBS, number 9, Michigan State playing at number 4, Michigan. Snare will head back to the line. North Carolina with 2 games remaining on their regular season schedule at Maryland Wednesday night, then home for Duke next Saturday night, followed by the ACC tournament. And if you finish in the first 4, you do get that first round bye. For Carolina, it will be 5 straight wins, 11 of their last 14, and a record of 21-8. They'll be 11-5 in the ACC. And could find themselves back in the rankings. We will see what occurs late Sunday night, Monday morning, as they look to those remaining 2 games in the regular season. And Florida State will drop to 15-14, and they go to 7-9 in the conference. Carolina has now won 9 of the last 10 against Florida State here in Chapel Hill. Crowd enjoying the dribbling by Davis. Luke Davis checking in for the first time. And then it's deflected out. Last touch by North Carolina.
Marvin, the Duke game will be special, but at Maryland, I mean, that's going to be tough. Remember, Duke lost at Maryland this year, and Carolina will face a 7-footer in Alex Lynn, who could potentially take advantage of this smaller lineup if the Terrapins can take care of the basketball and get it inside to him. That's a game Maryland desperately needs for their tournament hopes.
Couple opportunities by Snare. Took a shot to the far head, gets it back, and hits. Just under a half minute remaining. Luke Davis, sophomore from Raleigh, making his first appearance of the game. Joel James is back on the floor. James hit that odd shot that was deflected in earlier today. Here's McDonald. Kicks it back out. Crowd wants Moody to shoot. He does. And it's put down. Hubert on the follow. You know that shot by James that was deflected, we were told does not count as a field goal. It's a team field goal, unlike the NBA, because someone had touched it. I just wanted to clear that up for all those keeping score at home. Carolina with a 79-58 victory over Florida State, as we thank our producer Ken Mack, director Jim Cornell, our statistician Brian Taylor. For Steve Kerr, I'm Marv Alberts saying so long from Chapel Hill. Next on CBS, Michigan State at Michigan. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports, home of the 2013 Men's National Championship. We go to Greg Gumbel in New York right after this.